It's amazing how many people, how many entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley have Midwestern upbringings. And you can go all the way back to David Packard and Bob Noyce. You know, they all grew up in the Midwest. And you did too, in Wisconsin. Now, how big was this town?
Well, it's 800 now, but it was 1,000 when I lived there. So it was pretty...
So it was quite a prairie metropolis in those days.
It was. And most of us lived on the surrounding farms, and we thought we were pretty big time.
Yeah? What kind of farm?
Dairy. Wisconsin.
Well, it's Wisconsin, sure.
That's right. Cheese, milk.
And your high school class was how many?
50. Biggest ever.
Biggest ever.
Since and then.
Now, one of the great things I've seen about small town high schools is that you can have like 4 important roles at the same time.
Well, you have to. There's not enough.
There's not enough jobs. Yeah, not enough people go fill all the slots. So, you were what? Were you student body president or?
I was. Oh my gosh, cheerleader, drum majorette, student body president.
So you lead cheers, and when the band came out, you ran out in the field?
Yes, actually I did. I hadn't thought about that way. Sure, I just go change my clothes and
run out in the field.
Do the little halftime show and run back and put on the red and white. And
then you had a student council meeting next morning.
Not exactly, but at the time, you just, you got to do all that. I think that's why small schools are great, because everybody has a sense of accomplishment.
But I mean, isn't that kind of like being in a startup? Because you have too many jobs for too few people in a startup too, right?
Yes.
I mean, and everybody's running around, and the CEO happens to be cleaning the bathroom that day. And
yes, I just didn't remember the stock part.
Yeah, that's true.
Then it was stocking the shelves.
Now, you were raised by your grandparents.
I was.
What's the background on that?
Mother died when I was 8.
Okay.
And so I went at 12 to live with my grandparents. My brother was 6 years younger, so
So you both went?
We both went, and
Okay.
they thought it was time to, let me focus on school and less on housework and that sort of stuff, which I did when my mother died.
So you were the...
I was
you were
the mom.
running the household. You were the mom.
I was the mom. I was clever though. I would bring my friends over, and everybody got a room to play house in, but they had to clean the room.
Oh, so it's kind of a Tom Sawyer kind of thing.
Yeah, so you get the kitchen, that's your house, and my house is, and you have the bedroom. Now everybody cleans their house first.
And while you're at it, do the dishes.
That's right. I can't really attest to the quality of the job.
So you got up in the morning and got your baby brother dressed and got him off to school. That's a lot of responsibility.
Well, it
when
didn't
you're
seem
there.
like it at the time. You do what you do.
So you moved to your grandparents' place.
I did.
Your grandmother's, is she
Still living. We're going to do her 95th birthday in October, and she's a pistol. She says, "What's wrong with the stock price? What are you doing today?"
She like doing E-trade from the
Oh, she's just
farm?
crazy. 2 years ago, she bought a treadmill because it was too snowy that year, so she's bought I said, "How do you know what a treadmill is? You're, 93 years old."
Watches infomercials.
Well, why wouldn't I know what a treadmill is? So, I mean, I stopped asking that.
Well, so, I mean, she's one of those people who have actually seen more change than
1904?
basically anybody in human history. You know, the Wright brothers fly a few months before she's, born, and she sees men walk on the moon. But maybe the biggest change is in the lives of women.
Oh.
What does she think about you?
I think she's really proud. She has a lot of fun showing her cronies pictures and any TV things and that sort of thing. And she can't believe my company's bigger than her town. And for the longest time, she just, I think until she actually saw me at the President-elect Summit on TV. And so there I was, with the Washington crowd, and then it really sunk in. And then all of her cronies sort of figured it out as well.
So does she call you up and say, Carol, get out of package software, get it e-commerce, or?
Yeah, I get a lot of advice, believe me. It's not quite that direct, but she goes, now, are you working hard right now? Because it looks like you have a big job to do. She's, well, that's the thing with Midwesterners, you don't ever let down.
You don't stop, no.
My favorite story of her is when I was early teens, there was a rattlesnake up in one of the rafters in the farm, and I went in and I said, "Grandma, there's a rattlesnake." So she came out and looked at it, took a shovel, flipped it off, cut its head off, and said, "You could have done that."
I'm looking for the roots of entrepreneurship, where it comes from.
I think that I was taught that you try and grab as much as you can and you do it, and A, you don't complain, and B, get the job done and find another one to do. And I always thought it was fun to be, telling people what to do. I mean, if you're going to play in the band, lead it.
That's right.
So I actually hadn't voiced that before, but why not?
And you don't have to play the instrument. All you got to do is,
That's right. You
wave the baton.
Wave the baton. It's actually pretty easy.
Okay, so you're in Missouri going to college, and you say, this school isn't big enough, it's not enough of a challenge, and besides, it's above zero in the wintertime. I need to go back to Wisconsin.
And freeze. No.
And freeze.
No, actually, I took my first computer course and absolutely fell in love. I was in math up until then.
Well, you were a killer in math, right?
Love math.
In school.
Love math.
Okay, so you're doing math, you're in Missouri, and you see your first computer.
I went wild. I had so much fun.
What computer was it?
It was an IBM 1620. Punch paper
card.
tape.
Yeah.
No.
Tape.
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 Wow.
Card to tape. And we had to boot it up, and
Screamed along at like 30 computations a second.
oh, I don't think it was that fast. I remember my first program was to add up all the license plate numbers in Missouri, and I just thought this was fabulous to be able to do this, and transferred back really to get into computer science at Wisconsin.
Now there's exactly, what year is this? Is 69, 68 right in there?
67.
67.
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly a lot of women in the computer department. 2 of you, right? All male bastion. What was that like?
That was interesting.
Okay, now there's another factor about this era, especially at the University of Wisconsin, that it must have been rather difficult to get to the computer lab on some days.
Actually, a bigger problem at the time was we were considered establishment, and
So you were doing, the notion was you were doing Defense Department contracts.
Yes, and I had very liberal roommates, and so that actually was tougher than the male-female thing, was what are you doing in that kind of job? You should be in psych or soc or government or some sort of thing, and computer science is awful. And
Did they shut down the lab? Were there
they
bomb
had to shut down
threats
the lab.
and-
They had to shut down the lab.
Okay.
The Kent State Spring and the napalm stuff, Dow Chemical riots.
Yeah.
I mean, the good news is I remember a couple courses where they couldn't give us finals.
Professor got tear gassed and
You
they
always have to look at
boycotted
the
class.
good side. I mean, they just had to shut the thing down. So
Now you did a little protesting, didn't you? I read somewhere.
I might have done a little.
A little.
How did we get here?
There are no mug shots of you holding numbers or
No,
anything. Okay,
no.
well that's
There
good.
could be, however.
One of the interesting things watching the progress of your career is the scale keeps growing up until you're basically in your mid-30s.
Mm-hmm.
So small town, then Missouri, University of Wisconsin, and now 3M Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, it don't get much bigger than 3M Corporation. This is a
absolutely.
monster.
Monster.
Okay, and what are you doing there?
Well, that was my first exposure to you're a woman and what are you doing here? Because I was the first woman in our division. And that was very tricky. As a matter of fact, the first week there, I was actually fired.
Oh, really?
Because we were on a
Good start.
We were on a business trip, and I was the only woman. They got mixed up, and they roomed me with somebody. They got that sorted out, and then somebody did some rumoring, and they said, well, we have to fire you. Well, they rehired me the next morning. Long story. But that showed how strange the whole phenomenon was at the time. They wanted me for my computer science and for my background. They just didn't know what to do with a woman. Ultimately, I left 3M because they wouldn't promote me because I was a woman. I think it's a good company, and I'm not trying to trash 3M here because that was 30 years ago,
Right.
but it was tough times.
Why didn't you quit? I mean, you should have seen the writing on the wall. You're 3 days in or 4 days in, you get fired based upon these, sleazy rumors. I mean,
I had a good job, and 3M was a fabulous employer, And it was in the 70s, and you didn't think about things like that. And
They were just troglodytes at the time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And they hired me back the next day. I didn't, now I would know differently.
Yeah.
Well, now they wouldn't do it.
So how'd you find DEC?
Well,
I
when
mean, obviously you were programming probably on digital equipment computers by
That's
this point.
right. Actually, I knew I really wanted to get into a computer company, even though I was doing systems work at 3M. DEC at the time, to be a salesperson, you had to be an engineer or a computer science graduate. So that was me.
Yeah.
And there were 2 women in the sales force when I joined, one other. So I made 2, and that was the heydays of...
She must have been real happy to see you arrive. She must have been relieved.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. That was a heyday of the PDP series before Vaxxes, and great time to be in the mini business.
I was going to say digital equipment was the hottest company on
Hot.
earth
It
at the
was
time.
really a lot of fun.
Now, that's the first time you really get into a hot, fast-moving
Right,
tech company
right,
and see what it's like from the inside.
right.
Did it spur you entrepreneurially? I mean, when you looked at this, you said, "Oh man, look what Olson's done with this thing and how fast he's done it. I could do this."
Oh, I never thought I could do this and that I wanted to be a CEO. But I knew that if you did great things and could sort of exhibit yourself somehow, that you could just get bigger and bigger jobs. That was really clear, because the company had such growth, and if you were a combination, I think, sort of outspoken, smart, and willing to take some risks, you could go anywhere.
Why would you leave a gig like that on spec to come out to a little company out here?
Because California was where it was at. You could just you could just drive down the street in California and see all these companies. Everything was in our field.
What was the occasion for you to be in Silicon Valley? Selling?
Oh, just traveling.
Oh, okay.
Jack, and then when some friends of mine moved out to Sun, and basically encouraged me to come out and see, it was just hot.
Okay, so now here comes this incredible turning point in your life in like every possible way. I mean, if you were to list the most stressful things a human being can do, it would be to quit a good job, to go become the CEO of a company that is experiencing financial troubles with a 3-year-old, and you get diagnosed with cancer the same week.
That was that last part was the bummer. The
Oh,
other
I
part
bet.
I had signed up for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but this one comes in from left field.
This is left field.
What was your reaction when you went? I mean, this is like the worst and best week in a person's life.
Yeah, literally the first day on the job I was diagnosed, and so that was a real shot in the dark. I had 2 options. You know, at the time I actually remember having these thoughts: sort of quit and crawl in a hole, or just do it. And my grandmother never told me that part about quit and crawl in a hole.
Yeah.
So that wasn't an option. So it was, I think, what everybody does: get as much information, try to figure out, okay, what do I have to do with Autodesk? So I convinced my surgeons to wait a month, which they normally don't like to do.
No.
Wait a month before surgery. So I waited a month, got a couple of management people in place, and told the company I'd be back in 6 weeks, which was faster than the surgeon said I should. That was probably stupid. Again, looking back at the time, it seemed like the right thing to do. And did surgery, chemotherapy, just kept going.
You were running the company while you were doing chemo, weren't you? How'd you stay focused? I mean, or was that the focus you needed?
I believe that's a great focus. Between family and work, that you don't have time to think about, you know, do I feel bad today, or what awful thing is happening to me? And I just think the human spirit has great capacity if you just let it go. I think if you try and rein it in, so it's too inward focused, then all of us could go back to a fetal position.
So you start on Friday, you get the diagnosis on Sunday, you gotta go in Monday. Board meeting, meet the employees, hi everybody, I'm your new CEO, I'm leaving for 5 weeks.
Didn't tell them that for 30 days.
Okay. Now, on that Sunday, there must have, you must have done some long walks and said, do I care about work enough to keep doing this, or do I want to stay home in my garden and enjoy my garden?
You know, I really didn't do that. I know everybody wants to hear that you sit by the ocean and you watch the waves roll in, and I didn't do that. Because I was, 42, 43 years old, I knew I was going to work longer. Yes, I had cancer, but I didn't think that had to be a death sentence, and so I wanted to get more information about how will I get through this and what does it mean. And I knew I had, a couple of weeks of doctors to get that figured out. But I honestly never sat there and said, I should quit.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a weakness people have that push so hard, is that you don't know about the quitting part. You just say, I signed up to do this. I'm really interested in this. I want to do this, and I'm going to do it. This other thing, I got to get out of the way.
Well, is that the moment when you truly became an entrepreneur? Or you saw the totality of what it means to be that kind of person?
I think you could, in retrospectively, say that. I wanted to do that. I had a vision for what Autodesk could be, and this was a detraction.
Okay, so now you face a very interesting management problem, which is a company that's in trouble inevitably has some morale problems. The CEO is supposed to come in and be all-wise and strategic and make great decisions
Right.
and be strong.
Right.
And the very first thing, or within 30 days, you have to make a major confession of weakness and absence. How did you prepare the company for that?
I just told them, but I also told them I'd be back, told them when I'd be back. I was back on that exact day. And I believe that they saw me strong through the process, and so whatever weakness they might have feared for me, because they were very, very good to me. I mean, I got so many cards and banners and flowers from employees, and they were so clever, because instead of everything coming the first week, literally, they had it all planned, department by department. It rolled out over, a month. And so every day, my daughter thought it was a big party, because every day something would show up, and she just focused on the excitement of that. When I came back, they saw I was really dedicated, because I think they knew I could have called it off.
Right.
And that I wanted to be there, and that I was working through a tough time with chemo.
Now, I was going to say, what about your energy level? I mean, being the CEO of a company that size is more than a full-time job. How did you keep it up while you're essentially being poisoned by medication at the same time?
People that know me probably would like me to be a little less energetic.
Well, I was going to say that you're the lady who flying back and forth to Dallas.
Right.
So.
People that know me like me to chill out a little bit. In fact, one of my new VPs at the time said, "Oh my God, if this is what she's like in chemotherapy, what comes next?"
Right.
And so I refused to let that be an excuse for anybody around me or me.
Okay. So you get back to Autodesk, you're in command of the place, and they take another shot, which is the company runs into some more financial problems, right? And now all of a sudden, your ability as a leader, I read it, I remember reading the newspaper articles, is she up for the job, okay, but new CEOs face this. The first time you get bad numbers, it's like, well, maybe she was great as a VP, but she's not a CEO. How'd you react to that?
You have to get some pretty thick skin. You think just being an executive in a company toughens you up, but you're not tough until you're CEO. First of all, there's nobody to complain about.
Right.
You have to go talk to yourself. It was always easy to sit there and say, Ken did this or Scott did that, and gee, I would do it differently. All of a sudden, you're you.
Yeah.
And you just have to toughen up. In any criticism, some of it's true, and some of it's just ill-placed. Whenever I get a little too upset, I say, they can come do it and do it better if they wish.
How old's your daughter now?
11 yesterday.
11 yesterday. And it must be very satisfying that I read that she comes to you for help with her math and science homework.
Yeah, her dad's a little irritated. She goes, "No, Dad, Mom is an executive of a technology company. I'll ask her this question."
But there's one small victory of a girl who's probably not going to hit that wall where technology isn't something that women do. Because mom does it.
Right.
What about all the other little girls out there?
I worry a lot about that. If I weren't doing Autodesk, and if I weren't doing a corporate kind of job, beside my gardening, I have two passions. One is cancer, and truly trying to help people, everything from research through cancer victims. But my biggest passion actually is the little girls in math. And I will put a lot of resources in my life to trying to figure out, as you said, what exactly is the problem.
So is there a foundation sitting out there, a
there
Bartz
could be.
Foundation post-Autodesk that you run?
There could be. It's something like that.
How long do you stay CEO? I mean, you could argue that Ken Olsen stayed too long.
I think you can stay too long. I don't have it too long in my mind quite yet, but I hope to not overstay. I've said many times to my staff, hey, we have an open shop here, so if you start thinking I'm getting crusty, bring it out. I never have believed you plan too hard about what comes next, because you miss everything that way. And I didn't plan to be CEO of Autodesk. I didn't plan to come to the Valley. I didn't plan to go into computer science. I didn't plan any of these things. And I'm in such a wonderful place that why plan the next 5 years? Because there's something more exciting and bigger out there for me and my family and my work life, and I really believe
Let's
that.
take one of those little girls, comes to you and says, I watch your career, I want to do what you did. I think I'm an entrepreneur. What would you tell them? What's the one bit of sage advice that has come out of all these years?
To try things you're not comfortable with. Many of these jobs I took, I wasn't comfortable taking because I thought, gee, am I really the best person? So it made me try a little harder. I think it made me listen a little better. It made me rely on the folks around me, and then we all got successful. And I think you gotta constantly jump out of your comfort zone into something that seems a little scary. And if you do that enough, then you can take really big scary things on because you've practiced. And I can't think of a better thing to tell a 6-year-old, a 15-year-old, or a 45-year-old.
A national broadcast of Betting It All, The Entrepreneurs has been made possible by the following corporate funders. Applied Materials, producer of systems and services for the worldwide semiconductor industry. Applied Materials makes the systems that make the chips that make the products that change the world. Applied Materials, the information age starts here. Additional funding provided by Hewlett-Packard, the original company of inventors who celebrate the men and women everywhere who invent the ways we live and work. Hewlett-Packard urges you, keep inventing. By Mayfield, a recognized Silicon Valley-based venture capital firm creating revolutionary companies for the 21st century in communications and the Internet. And by Goldman Sachs, a global investment bank and securities firm advising and financing leading technology companies worldwide. Goldman Sachs is proud to support innovation and technology.